First tip, no-brainer, doesn't matter where you start. All the cultures in the game have neighbors and you will start gaining cultural acceptance with those neighbors, 1% each month in average. And since you start with about 20%, in about 20 years we'll have 40% cultural acceptance. That is enough to make a hybrid culture. For example, we start this as Dutch and we are going to pick the French culture, and here we can click this button, make hybrid culture. And the good news here is that we start right after only 20 years. We are able to pick 5 cultures, the best from both cultures. Instead of the original 3, we are going to have 5 at the cost of only 1000 prestige. Second tip is a very useful button, reserve perks, in the perks tree. But the idea of this button is to, when you start with an old king, you can change the perks and move the way to want. But the power of this button is that you can change the perks in the middle of your life. So for example, you start with for quick annexation, but after you annex all you can at the moment, this tree is useless, so you may wish to change to family tree or some other strategy that you have in mind. When you grant titles, consider these options. Grant title to local nobles. That will give you a huge boost to cultural acceptance and will keep gaining cultural acceptance in time, and that will allow you to go in big conquest with diplo annexing. You do not want to harvest your family tree when you start the game. Let it grow, so always marry matrilineal at the beginning of the game, and later you are going to be able to marry your girls for alliances or for dynasty power. Use the kindergarten strategy and take a look at your dynasty tree, your dynasty, and find 4 good kids, and you can bring them to your court. You can invite them to your court. If they don't want to, you can use your hook to imprison them and then release in exchange for inviting to your court. And that way you can choose his training path, for example making them stewardship, and also you can grant them titles and also choose their path since they are young, and you can use them for alliances, future kings, or whatever you want. Also apply a special succession law to your main title, and that way you can choose from all your family which one is going to be your heir. If he doesn't appear here, you need to boost him by giving him a duchy and some money. To get a next top king, you should be genius and pick as your next heir a genius. That will increase your training points. Also make sure you pick the tradition storytellers. In the learning tree, pick pedagogy, so you give him more points. And also groomed perks in the diplomatic tricks will give the kids more points. With those 2 traits, the storyteller and being your kid a genius and you a genius, and also pick a kid with a basic skill. The basic skill is given very early and it indicates the characteristic of the kid. For example, in this case, if he's curious, he's going to be good at diplomacy or learning. He's going to gaining less points and other aspects. I usually pick bossy, that give you plus stewardship and learns much more in stewardship. You want to have your next heir some good prestige before he gets to the throne, so pass him several domains and titles and money, so he starts gaining his own prestige and career before he gets to the crown. For the very same reason that you want to marry matrilineal at the start of the game, you want to avoid using your own family as knights early on, so your family keeps growing. If you're going for world conquest, you should send colonies and spread your culture, so place a base here and here and here, and in 20 years you will have cultural acceptance with all these cultures, and you're going to be able to diplonex or at least maintain the territories with far less revolts. With the Pope you have 2 interesting instructions. One is to give him a word, 2 words actually, that will increase your prestige with him and he will give money, but also you can buy indulgences and that will allow you to keep fighting religious war all across the world and expanding very fast. Do not underestimate the power of the hounds. the house, since they are your better allies, because they do not cost you prestige. I have 11 house members that will fight for me at any war, and they actually do all the work. There are some traits that you should always try to pick. This one is for gaining money. For gaining money, this will allow you to ask very frequently tons of money from your vassals. This will allow you to gain money while waging a war. So for example, you can use your crusaders and your house member, and you keep gaining money without mobilizing your army, and these two will also help gaining money. In the learning tree, I usually pick this one that will help me with fascination progress. This one will help me when training the next kid, gaining more points, guardian. This one that will help me gaining prestige with the Pope. It's used early on, that gives you some money from the Pope. This will give you an extra 10 points. In the diplomatic tree, I go for true leader combined with the diplomatic core. It will allow you to diplonex the whole world. And also pick this one that will help me training the kid, the next king. When you are getting really big, fabricate hooks is useful for dismantling the revolts, the factions, but there is a full video on dealing with factions. Tip number 14, don't be afraid to break betrothal. When the kids are 0 years old or 1 year old, you can make very good marriages for alliance, and usually the candidate, if he's or she's very old, dies before the marriage, but if he's going to marry anyways, you can abort the betrothal and marry him or her on last minute with a good candidate, but in the meanwhile the alliance could have saved you. Final tip, thanks a lot for being there. In the upper right corner you will find a link with some other videos with more details of what we have talked today, and probably I have missed some tips that are there, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.